Well, hello and welcome back to our podcast regarding the book titled The Handbook of Virtual Exchange, Building Global Citizens at Home. We're here today with some really interesting authors who wrote a chapter in the book titled Sustainable Systems Leadership in Water Challenges, a virtual exchange between students from Morocco and the United States. I'm here with the co-authors, Natalie Kors, Gabriella Sullivan, Karima Khalil. These folks have been working together on a virtual exchange that looked at water, but also on groundwater. So the book will be out in approximately late spring, early summer, the latest. And this chapter will be available ahead of the book. And so we are doing our podcast in that context. I'd like to have each of you introduce yourselves and your universities, where you're at. And then I'd like to just begin with understanding if you would tell us, how did you all meet before we get into the context of the subject matter? So, Natalie, I'd like you to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks so much for having us. I'm Dr. Natalie Kors. I am an instructional associate professor at the University of Florida in the Department for Agricultural Education and Communication. My role specifically focuses on global agricultural leadership development.
Hi, I'm Gabriella Sullivan. I'm also at the University of Florida, and I'm in the Department of Agricultural Education and Communications.
Thank you. My name is Professor Karima Khalil, professor at Qadi Iyad University at School of Technology in Essaouira in Morocco, in Department Environment and Renewable Energies. I would like to thank you for this invitation and glad to be present in this podcast of our contribution to this book.
Wonderful. Now, why don't you begin? Maybe Natalie, go first and tell us how you all got together as co-authors.
Yes. So I originally met Karima a couple of years ago. I attended a virtual webinar in which she was one of the presenters. And I have some past connections with Morocco through study abroad and international experiences with students. So I was very intrigued by her presentation that focused on Morocco and her students there. And so when I wanted to explore virtual exchange, I went through a professional development program here at the University of Florida. And with that, we had to identify a partner to potentially do a virtual exchange with. And so I reached out to Karima, and we had several conversations through that particular program to just build out this virtual exchange. And it was just such a delight to get to know her along that journey as well.
Karima, would you like to contribute and tell us more about how that relationship started?
Yes, of course. Once again, it's thanks to you, Dr. Tzoumis, because you were moderating this NASPA webinar on intercultural competencies, global learning, and preparing for environmental sustainability in April 2025. And it was a meeting between global learning education partners and Dr. Natalie contact me for virtual exchange to develop virtual exchange between our university students. So we have been working together. We managed to set up a virtual exchange last November 2025 about a very interesting and topical discipline of water sustainability challenges. And now, less than 2 years of our partnership, this work of virtual exchange in our discipline is highlighted by this amazing open access chapter. We are honored to contribute to this book. Thanks to Dr. Tzoumis for this opportunity, and thanks to my partners, Dr. Kors and Gabriela, for your collaboration.
Wonderful. All right, let's now dive into really the focus of the book, meaning the two big research questions that are asked in all of the chapters of the book. And those are, what impacted virtual exchange in any form of that word, regardless of the pedagogy that you use? What did the impact of having a virtual exchange really help in, or maybe not help in terms of learning your discipline? And what would have been missed if you didn't have this global virtual exchange? So if we start there, and then I'd like to really hear more about the groundwater and the water sustainability. So if you want to start tackling those big subjects, I think we should go there.
Yeah, let's start a little bit with some of the context for the virtual exchange. Uh, the two courses have a really interesting combination of these disciplinary perspectives to bring to the table. For my course that I brought into this virtual exchange, this is a group of students that we focus on leadership development towards global challenges. And we are developing students to really address complex and systemic challenges that they'll face as they head out into the workforce and as we see across the globe in our everyday context. And so that application into kind of a case study focused on groundwater and water challenges really connected with some of the environmental perspectives that Karima had through her students and her class. So Karima, could you tell us a little bit about your course that came into this virtual exchange?
Yes, of course. Uh, as you said, Natalie, for the context across the world, groundwater is a critical resource for societal, economic, and environmental well-being, and specifically in Africa, in Morocco. So the study we have in this chapter uh, examines water sustainability challenges as the foundation of a virtual exchange between our universities, between our undergraduate students from Morocco and from US, from Florida. And this case this study case provided a detailed explanation of the critical role of groundwater in social, economic, and environmental well-being, while also presenting the challenges of sustainability managing groundwater. Um, yeah, this is the idea of this chapter.
Thanks, Karima. I really enjoyed this collaboration because it merged social and kind of technical perspectives around water challenges and what students can do in an active role to address these challenges both now and into the future. I really appreciated Gabby's work in kind of the development of the case study that brought together these two perspectives of Morocco and Florida. Gabby, could you share a little bit about kind of some of the similarities between these two contexts that really provided the foundation for this case study?
Sure. So Natalie asked me to kind of start thinking about a case study, and we wanted to find areas where groundwater overlapped between Florida and Morocco. In Florida, we have the Floridan Aquifer System, and the University of Florida is located in north central Florida. And so we really rely on this aquifer system for our drinking water. I'm pretty engaged in the water community, and so this was something I had a lot of knowledge about, and I thought our students should really get engaged and understand how this water and their direct behavior impacts. When we were thinking in the context of Morocco, we thought about the Tensif Basin, which is in central Morocco, and they have similar it's a larger basin area with an aquifer. Parts of this aquifer are also unconfined, which means that there's not really a layer on the top. So what happens on the surface can impact that water body. We have a similar issue here in Florida and certain parts of Florida. Um, and so we really wanted to start comparing these two things, both which are kind of located near these students. So these students we wanted them to understand the technical components, but we also wanted to hear from them about their day-to-day lives, how their cultural experiences and their personal experiences influence their perceptions and knowledge of both of those systems. So that's how we kind of got to those two specific cases within our case study.
That's outstanding. Now, can we move into, I think in your chapter, you do some really interesting things with critical thinking and systems thinking, and then the contextual connections. Let's talk about those things and also the unique tool that you use to measure these.
Certainly. That case study really provided the context for us to explore deeper of some of these skills and competency kind of development that really cuts across different disciplines and are essential for the global context in which we operate as human beings and as leaders, both now and into the future, in particular for our students in that development process. So, critical thinking, one of those foundational skills that really helps for the analysis and understanding of multiple perspectives when you consider how do we approach a challenge and how do we think through different ways of addressing a challenge within our own kind of disciplinary expertise, and perhaps what other areas of discipline do we need to consider to really make an informed decision about actions that can influence change within some of these really systemic global challenges that we face. And so there's an instrument that was developed through the University of Florida International Center, and it's called the International Critical Thinking Assessment Tool, or the INCRIT, as they refer to it. And this particular assessment tool includes several statements that really connect with students' abilities to think through different issues in a very kind of critical perspective. Are they able to kind of take on different perspectives in addressing that particular issue? It has 12 different items as part of this particular assessment and has some components connected with it, thinking about judgment, analysis, reasoning, and solution finding when you're addressing complex challenges. So that was one of the assessment tools that we utilized through this particular virtual exchange. The other really focused on systems thinking, because when you think about this discipline of water and of leadership development and global context, we have to help students to develop that ability to see how interconnected our world is, and that's through systems. And so as they connect these social, environmental contexts, systems are complex. And so helping students really understand the complexity of those systems allows them from a leadership and decision-making perspective to really consider all of the different points of entry for making positive change. And so for the systems thinking side of assessment, we utilized a questionnaire that reflected systems thinking practices. This was developed by a couple of authors, Frakes and Linder, that developed these practices through the Waters Foundation and some other area expertise of systems thinking as a practice. And so that frequency of use of these practices is really what we were trying to see and measure within our students as they're addressing this complex challenge within water.
Yes, and I believe you found when you compared the pre and post use of this survey that it was systems thinking that was significantly improved. Is that correct?
It was, yes. Gabby, could you tell us a little bit more about some of those findings connected with systems thinking?
Yeah, sure. So that particular questionnaire really focused on the frequency and use of systems thinking. And so what we saw is that prior to our 3 session virtual exchange, students were using some of these systems thinking habits or traits. But post-assessment, we definitely had a statistically significant increase in the frequency of use. And so this, either through this process, they basically notice that they're using them more, or we're able to put to words what they were actually doing. Natalie, do you want to emphasize or discuss that a little further?
Yeah, I think those systems thinking practices are really improved upon when you give a context for students to apply it to. And so through the case study focused on these water challenges, we were able to introduce and emphasize the concept of systems thinking and give them some tools around what to look for and what to think about from that systems perspective to be able to understand, in particular, these water challenges through the sessions that we had. Um, so specifically thinking about kind of how we went about this virtual exchange and the impact that those sessions had. The first session, we really focused on connecting the students, getting them accustomed and introducing themselves to one another across kind of those cultural boundaries, and time boundaries and all of the fun elements of virtual exchange to kind of navigate. And we provided them just some base level questions around systems and sustainability and why are they important for us to even be discussing in a virtual exchange environment, and in particular in this addressing water challenges. So then in the second session is where we really kind of focused on the system structure to pull out from the specific examples of the Morocco aquifer or the Moroccan basin, as well as the Floridan aquifer. And we did that through a systems mapping discussion, providing them with a system structure to discuss the inflows or the recharge and the outpulls of water from these systems to essentially identify what are the challenges and the behaviors that they may be contributing to, and others to identify where those outpulls are that are helping or hurting in that overall water level of the overall system. And then the third and final session was really how do we identify the solutions of what the challenges were that we identified, and kind of a general reflection over the entire virtual exchange experience.
Well, that's a great lead in to me asking what I started the session with and what the book is asking. So, what impact do you think this virtual exchange experience had on your disciplinary learning? And without it, what would have been missed? Karima, why don't you take the lead on this?
Yes, of course. Thank you. The idea that when we want to develop leaders for global society, we we have or we must integrate disciplinary expertise with others as intercultural competency among other skills development. And these skills, such as creative thinking, systems thinking, curiosity, leadership, global citizenship, and environmental skills, I think virtual exchange is one classroom or experience learning or pedagogy learning about opportunity to develop students' disciplinary skills while learning about intercultural competency. So I see that for my students when they were working on case study in Morocco and when they compared with study case from Florida, they improve their critical thinking, they improve their leadership or the curiosity to know what about other systems, groundwater or water challenges in other countries. And it was very interesting for students. And as Natalie and Gabriela say for about the results of this study, they highlight significant growth in their overall frequency of system thinking practices and using sharing session, whiteboards, Zoom discussion, transcriptions, the impact of virtual exchange reflected participants' value of the virtual exchange for gaining cultural perspective in addressing system water challenges in our case study.
That that's a great place for us to end. Is there anything else any of you would like to say? I think Karima, you clearly established what the chapter was about, and Natalie and Gabriela, you definitely gave us a good understanding of how the collaboration worked. Anything else you would like to say before we close?
I think I would just emphasize that, some of those main findings that Karima mentioned, one of the biggest ones for the US kind of student perspective was really around that diversification of perspective taking and their awareness of how issues really transcend boundaries. And so, if we look at developing leaders for these really complex challenges, we saw that through the qualitative pieces. We saw that across the INCRIT and the systems thinking um, practices, that perspective taking. Without the virtual exchange, our students missed that invaluable opportunity to hear from their peers of how these challenges aren't just within one location, but they're global challenges. And the behaviors that each individual student are taking are impacting these challenges. And so it also, through the use of this case study and having the virtual exchange to share those perspectives and ideas around solutions and challenges, it just pushes these students forward in their development so they can go take action to help create solutions for the challenges that we're facing in their disciplinary areas and throughout their communities. And it's just such an incredible tool to be able to develop our students in that way at a different level than what they would ever get from just looking at a case study connected to their specific location.
Right. And so this is a nice case study as well in career readiness and preparation for praxis that you are doing within the courses before the students move into their profession. Gabby, you have the last word.
Thank you. I think, particularly in water challenges across the globe, what we're seeing in the literature and what it shows in this case study is people from, we had students from very different disciplines coming together. They bring their own ideas, their own ways of thinking that they've been taught in their respective disciplines. And in this sustainability studies and systems thinking, they have to apply everything as well as be open to those new perspectives that people are bringing. And so it's really kind of the perfect way to emulate how they're going to address future challenges, how they're going to work with students who have different backgrounds as well as ways of thinking and ways of attaining knowledge. And so I think this was just a perfect way to show how to bring people together in sustainability sciences, but also to show how systems thinking can be that bridge and something that anyone from any discipline can apply in the context.
Well stated. This was a wonderful time together. Thank you for your chapter and your research, and I hope it continues. And thank you for this time during the podcast. I think this was a wonderful discussion on how we can prepare our students globally for the challenges that they will be facing, particularly in a polarized world. Thank you. Thank you very much, scholars.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.